I travel a lot for work, which means I've stayed in my fair share of Airbnbs. Some have been nice, others forgettable. But there's one place I will never forget, one place that still haunts me. It was late October when I booked a last-minute stay in a small town outside of Portland. A quiet retreat, I told myself, away from the stress of city life. The listing was simple: an old, rustic cabin deep in the woods, owned by a man named Richard. There were only a handful of reviews, all positive, though one mentioned the place felt strangely empty. I didn't think much of it at the time. I arrived just before sunset. The drive up the winding forest road was unsettling, the trees pressing in on either side of my car like silent watchers. The cabin itself was exactly as described: quaint, isolated, and eerily still. A single porch light flickered weakly, casting long, twisting shadows across the wooden deck. Richard had left a key under the doormat as promised. Inside, the air smelled of aged wood and something faintly metallic. The furniture was old but well kept, and the decor had an odd personal touch: framed photos of people I didn't recognize, arranged with almost obsessive precision. I set my bag down in the small bedroom and immediately felt off. The bed was made, but the pillows were slightly indented, as if someone had just been lying there. I told myself it was nothing, just my imagination, but the feeling of being watched refused to leave me. That first night I heard something strange. At around 2 a.m., a creaking sound echoed through the cabin, like slow, deliberate footsteps on wooden planks. My heart pounded as I strained to listen, but the noise stopped as abruptly as it had started. I tried to convince myself that old houses make noises, that the wind was shifting the wood, but deep down, I knew better. The next morning I found something that made my stomach turn. On the kitchen table there was an old-fashioned cassette tape. I hadn't noticed it the night before, and it certainly wasn't mine. The label was blank, the plastic casing covered in a thin layer of dust. Curiosity got the better of me. I found a cassette player in one of the drawers and pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then a voice, breathy, whispering, broken, a man's voice trembling. He watches. He's always watching. You can't see him, but he sees you. He's here. He's... Silence. Then a low, guttural sound, almost like a growl, followed by the unmistakable sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. I stopped the tape, my hands shaking. Was this some kind of joke? I wanted to believe that, but the unease in my gut told me otherwise. That night, I barely slept. Every creak, every rustle of wind outside sent my heart racing. Around 3 a.m., I heard it again. The footsteps, but this time they were closer. Inside the cabin. I held my breath, listening as they moved from the hallway to the living room. Slow, deliberate. I could hear breathing, ragged and low, just outside my bedroom door. I reached for my phone, my fingers shaking as I turned on the flashlight and pointed it toward the doorway. Nothing. The sound stopped. The cabin was silent. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I packed my bags. I didn't care about getting my money's worth. I just wanted out. But as I stepped outside, something stopped me cold. In the dirt just outside my window were footprints. Large, barefoot impressions leading from the woods to my window, and then back into the trees. I left without looking back. Later that week, I checked the listing again, only to find it had been removed. No trace of Richard, no history of the cabin. It was as if it had never existed. I still think about that place, about the voice on the tape, the sounds in the night, the footprints in the dirt. I tell myself it was just my imagination, that it couldn't be real. But some nights, when the house is silent and the shadows are long, I swear I can hear it again. The breathing, just outside my door. I've always been fascinated by old houses, their history, their secrets. So when I found an Airbnb listing for a century-old Victorian house in a quiet New England town, I booked it without hesitation. The photos showed intricate woodwork, antique furniture, and dimly lit hallways. It was perfect. The owner, a woman named Evelyn, left a polite but oddly specific note. "Enjoy your stay. Please do not move the mirror in the upstairs hallway." I laughed it off as a quirk of an eccentric host. The first night was uneventful. The house creaked and groaned with the weight of age, but that was expected. It wasn't until the second night that I noticed something strange. I was brushing my teeth when I caught movement in the mirror's reflection. Just a shadow, shifting slightly. I turned, but nothing was there. A trick of the dim lighting, I told myself. That night I dreamt of whispers, faint, indecipherable words weaving through the air like smoke. When I woke up, my room felt colder than before. The third night, the whispers grew louder. They came from the hallway. I hesitated before stepping outside my room, my breath shallow. The mirror stood at the end of the hallway, reflecting the dim light from the single overhead bulb. And then I saw it. A face. Not mine. Pale, hollow eyes staring back at me from the glass. My body locked in place, every muscle frozen. The reflection's lips moved, but no sound came out. I ran back into my room, locking the door behind me. The whispers continued, a chorus of soft, insistent voices pressing against the walls. By dawn, I was packed. As I passed the mirror one last time, I noticed something chilling. The dust along the frame had been disturbed, long, thin streaks dragged across the surface, as if something inside had tried to claw its way out. I left without looking back. When I later searched for the listing, it was gone. No record of Evelyn, no mention of the house. But that wasn't the end. A week later, I started hearing whispers again. Not loud, just faint enough to make me question my sanity. At first, I chalked it up to exhaustion or an overactive imagination. But then I saw it, my reflection, moving on its own. It started subtly, a delayed blink, a twitch of the lips that I hadn't made. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself it was stress. Until one night, when I turned away from the bathroom mirror and caught it still watching me out of the corner of my eye. Panic set in. I avoided mirrors entirely, covering the ones in my apartment. But reflections are everywhere. Windows, polished surfaces, even my phone screen. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape it. Then, one night, I woke up to the sensation of breath against my ear. A whisper so close it sent ice down my spine. "Let me in." I bolted upright, but my room was empty. The air was thick with something unseen, something waiting, daring me to look. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I uncovered the bathroom mirror. My own reflection stared back at me, normal at first. But then, it smiled. I hadn't. A slow, deliberate grin stretched across its face, a mockery of my own. My stomach churned. I backed away, only for my reflection to tilt its head in curiosity, as if it were studying me. That was when I saw the scratches on the glass, the same long, thin streaks from the Victorian house. I don't know how, but I brought it with me. Now, every night, I hear the whispers growing louder. I feel its eyes on me. And I know, one night when I least expect it, the thing in the mirror will step through and take my place. I never used to believe in haunted places. Ghost stories, urban legends, just tales meant to spook people. But after what happened to me in that Airbnb, I don't think I'll ever stay in a stranger's house again. I booked a secluded cabin in the mountains for a weekend getaway. The listing was perfect, cozy, remote, surrounded by nature. The owner, an older man named Richard, left a brief but friendly message. "Make yourself at home. Just don't open the basement door." I chuckled when I read it. Every old house has its quirks, right? The first night was peaceful. The air was crisp, the fireplace crackled, and the isolation was a welcome escape from city life. But as I lay in bed, I heard something odd, soft tapping coming from below. I brushed it off as settling noises, but when I got up to get a drink, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The basement door was open, not just unlocked, wide open, a black void gaping at the end of the hallway. I stood there, heart pounding. Had I left it open? Number I hadn't touched it. Swallowing my unease, I shut the door and locked it, then dragged a chair in front of it for good measure. The second night, the tapping came back, louder, more insistent. It wasn't random anymore. It was rhythmic, like fingers drumming against wood. I checked the door. Still locked. The chair was still there. But the air around it felt wrong. Heavy. That night, my dreams were strange. I saw the basement door swinging open. I saw myself walking down the stairs into darkness. And then I saw something crawling up toward me. I woke up, gasping. The room was ice cold, my breath visible in the air. I turned on the bedside lamp, trying to shake the lingering dread. That's when I noticed something new. The chair had moved, not fallen over, not shifted slightly. It was across the room, as if someone had picked it up and placed it there. I didn't sleep after that. At dawn, I packed my bags. I didn't care about the refund. I just needed to get out. But as I reached the front door, I heard it. The basement door creaking open behind me. I didn't look. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached my car, speeding down the winding road, not daring to glance in the rearview mirror. Later, when I checked the Airbnb listing again, it was gone. No trace of Richard, no record of the cabin. But it wasn't over. That night, back home in my apartment, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally. And then, around 3 a.m., the tapping started again, software rhythmic, coming from the closet. I sat frozen, my mind racing. Slowly, I stood up and moved toward it. My fingers trembled as I reached for the knob, and when I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. There was nothing there, just clothes and darkness. But as I stepped back, something caught my eye, long, thin scratches on the inside of the door. Deep gouges, as if something had been trapped there. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I tried to brush it off. Maybe I had never noticed the scratches before. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But the fear lingered. I started keeping all my doors locked, double-checking windows. I even left the lights on when I slept. Then, 2 nights later, my bathroom mirror fogged up while I was brushing my teeth. As I wiped it clean, I saw something that made my breath hitch. A message, written in the condensation. "Let me in." I stumbled back, nearly knocking over the sink. My pulse pounded in my ears. I turned and bolted out of the bathroom, slamming the door shut. But even through the thick wood, I could hear it. The tapping. It followed me. No matter where I went, I would hear it. On walls, windows, even beneath my bed. I moved apartments, changed my number, even stayed at a friend's place for a while. But it didn't matter. It always found me. One night, I set up my phone to record as I slept. The next morning, I watched the footage with shaking hands. Around 3:14 a.m., my bedroom door creaked open on its own. A shadowy figure, featureless and tall, stepped into the room. It moved unnaturally, as if its joints bent in the wrong directions. And then, it turned its head toward the camera. There were no eyes, just empty, gaping darkness. It stood there, watching me sleep, unmoving for nearly an hour. Then, as the first rays of dawn peeked through the window, it slowly retreated. But before it left, it did something that sent a chill down my spine. It tapped on the wall 3 times, and then it was gone. I haven't slept since. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it wants. But I know this. It came from that Airbnb. And now it's with me, waiting.